This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
It is the fastest growing segment of our population, and that is essentially baby boomers. People a little bit older, and there's a lot of them. And with that comes a lot of health issues and challenges, even mobility challenges. And we're going to talk with somebody today that is going to open our eyes to something very special. It's a technique that's been around 150 years and can lead to a lot of mobility. And I've learned so much. I didn't even hear about this technique until I met this gentleman. And now we're going to talk about it connected to seniors. He's a neuromuscular and rehab specialist, and he's Travis Chastain, our professional VR. He's back with us. How are you doing today?
Steve, I'm great. How are you today?
Very well, very well. And I'm happy
Good.
we're
It's good to see
addressing
you.
this theme. This is it's so important. And, I will say firsthand that as you get older, your mobility changes. Even stretching is, we forget even to do that as you get older. And it does make such a difference in our lives. I even heard, Travis, and this, pivoting for a moment, but within seniors, because they don't move around a lot of fluids within their body, even lymphatic fluids, don't flow. There's no pump like a heart. And your lymphatic system contains toxins. You're not moving it. You're not flushing that stuff out the way you should. A lot of different things here with seniors. How does this address the Alexander technique? How does it address the senior population?
That's a great question, my friend. So the Alexander technique helps the senior population because, well, we all learn over time how to carry excessive tensions in our bodies from this activity or that. We can tend to get away with these things when we're younger. We can power through things when we're younger. But when you don't have that strength anymore, and efficiency becomes of the utmost importance, that's where the Alexander technique really comes in. It really helps us kind of learn a very simple way of thinking, because thinking is always influencing our coordination. We don't recognize that, but it is the truth, is that our thinking is always influencing it. And that's actually a really exciting thing, because you can learn a way of thinking to release out of these physical behaviors of tension that impact our nervous system, that impact our muscular system, that impact our lymphatic system, that impact our fascial system. And you can just learn this way of thinking to move the energy a little bit in your neck, move the energy a little bit in your back, move it in a little bit more positive direction, then move with that, right? And move with a little bit more freedom, which gives you a little bit more confidence. I think that what I see is that in my own work with the senior community, one of the reasons they don't want to move is there's perhaps not as much confidence that they can move the way they once could, right? And the thing that I am so excited about is that you work with the technique and you explain the technique to somebody who's struggling with mobility. And, they start to get it. They start to free up in their head, neck, and back, and they move with that. There's a confidence that comes from it. Oh, wait a minute. I just moved differently. I moved out of that chair in an easier way simply by going through these thinking procedures that was outlined in my lesson, getting in contact with how I'm thinking, right? That is either helping my coordination or hindering my coordination. Getting in contact with that, making the switches and the observations if I'm overdoing it in my thinking, and then move with that little bit of ease. And there's a lot more confidence that they get. A lot more confidence, because that thing that might have hurt before trying to move out of the chair suddenly doesn't hurt because the obstacle has been removed simply by shining the light, right? Simply by shining your awareness and thinking your way through it rather than what we tend to do, which is feel our way through it, react to the pain.
I think you nailed it very much so about the confidence.
Yeah.
Because you get older, if you get injured, you know it's going to take a lot longer to heal. So you're going to be a little more careful. You're not going to be as mobile. And therein lies a challenge. Catch 22 situation, I guess. Um, Fundamentals, when we talk about tension, and a lot of this is about us holding tension and releasing that tension, how do you define that?
Yeah. Yeah. So acting and reacting to stimuli, right? So I'll give you an example. If I give you an order, let's say to get out of the chair, or perhaps to even grab this bottle of water, what's going to happen automatically is you receive the stimuli to action or reaction that's going to trigger your most familiar habit's attention. This is neither good nor bad. It can be bad, right? But what we want to get in present to is that this is a fact, right? A stimuli comes if we say yes to that stimuli and act upon it immediately. Then what's going to come about is that which is most familiar, right? The most familiar neuromuscular pathway is going to run through our brain and into our bodies. And so what we do in the Alexander technique, first and foremost, is, well, we want to get in the habit of refusing the stimuli, right? Is by before I act on that thing, let me just pause. Let me think this word no. And why is that so important? Because when the stimuli to action comes and I say no to it, I've immediately caused a break in this neuromuscular pathway. And now I have an actual choice. I have an actual chance to build something that's a little bit more efficient, right? To explore how to make that a little bit easier within myself, to play with movement, right? As it turns out, in order to play with movement and to move outside of our habitual tendency, you can't do it until you say the word no, until you think the word no, until you give yourself a choice to not respond, right? And so I think that's a thing that's truly unique and truly revolutionary and truly powerful about the technique is it teaches us first, before responding, take care of yourself, right? Before responding, leave yourself alone. It doesn't have to take long. Maybe a split second here. Leave yourself alone to think about ease in your neck, ease in your whole back, a more appropriate tone in your back. As it turns out, that's really all it takes. If you're thinking it out and you're not trying to do it. Right? So that's the first thing. That little break creates a whole new world of possibility.
Could we be holding tension for decades and not even know it?
Yes, in fact, we are.
And I'm talking about, let's say there was a traumatic event in your life, 20 years ago, whatever it may be. And we could be walking around and not even realize that, it hurts when I move my neck or something. And it could be tied back to that event.
It can be. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And I
Wow.
think the really nice thing about the technique is it doesn't require you to have the answer. You just have to engage in the method. Right? I don't need to know when and where and exactly how I got into these patterns of tension. Even if I knew, that's not going to exactly help me get out of it. Right? But the nice thing is I can just meet myself where I am and be kind to myself where I am.
Hmm.
Bring some a little attention to how I'm thinking. Again, it comes back to thinking. The entire technique is about, well, truly, thinking your way out of your habitual response to stimuli that leads us wrong, right? Leads us into these unhealthy patterns that cause pain in our knee, perhaps, cause pain in our body, pain in our back, difficulty in our breathing. It can manifest itself in 1,000 different ways.
Hmm.
But the key is always just coming back to thinking and thinking about, well, no to responding first and foremost. I don't need to respond immediately. It's so critical. Without that, well, then we're always reacting habitually.
Can you walk us through a situation that might be involving let's say we're talking seniors today. So whatever you pick anything, getting up out of a chair, whatever it may be, how that looks now and how that may look when they use the Alexander technique.
Ah, I like this idea. I like this experiment. Yeah, let's practice getting in. Yeah.
So like a verbal before and after.
Verbal. Okay, a verbal before and after on what it would look like. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
like what that senior, what they might be thinking, what they might be feeling,
Uh-huh.
beforehand. And we
Uh-huh.
could, we don't have to go into deep detail, but 80-year-old
Yeah.
man, whatever.
Yeah. No.
And then what the challenge was, and then what it
Hmm.
could be after that person used the Alexander technique.
Okay. Yeah, so let's say that they're having difficulty getting out of the chair, for example.
Sure.
Okay. That's a good starting point. Well, so you're having difficulty getting out of the chair. Let's say this is where you're starting. And you start thinking about the fact that you need to get out of the chair.
Okay.
So what typically happens in there is that if you have an experience of it always being difficult, then what tends to happen, as if you might guess, is that you start running that mentally, getting ready for this action of getting out of the chair.
Totally.
Your muscles are bracing, your muscles are tightening, you're rehearsing the movement, you're
Truth.
preparing for a difficulty, you're preparing for possible pain, right? There's an automatic stiffening that's coming in response to that stimuli
Sure.
that's manifested this particular set of results for you, right? So the first thing I would tell the student, and we can work on this together, is practicing the no, practicing inhibiting the response to stimuli. So when I give you the stimuli to stand, why don't we, instead of thinking I must do it, think no, maybe, but there's a choice to do something else or nothing at all for a second before I act. So just notice even there within your body when you give yourself that distinction, right? It's a noticing of one of two ways that you can think about something, right? In the Alexander technique, we call the bad way of thinking, for lack of a better term, end gaining. When you just kind of get focused on that end result that you need to achieve, and it always results to this excessive holding in the body. Right? So we just want to be present to that, well, before I do something, can I recognize a fact? There's a choice to do something else or nothing at all. So I'm even seeing within you a little change in your body just by listening to the two differences there. And so that's where we start with, right? Is just start with that word a couple times. Okay, you can really leave yourself alone. You don't have to get out of this chair right now. Let's think about some particular words. Let's first think about leaving yourself alone. Really, really, really warm that up mentally. We'll get to that getting out of the chair later. But before you do that, why don't you just think these words? My neck is free. Just think it and let it go and see how that moves through your body. All right. You can leave yourself alone. You have nothing to do in this moment. Maybe I'll get out of the chair. Maybe not. Notice how that brings you in a little bit more balance. I'll think the terms, my neck is free. And then I'll think about where my head wants to go. Right? So FM noticed that the head always gets pulled. If this is the back of the skull and this is the back, tends to get pulled back and down against the spine. So we want to think of a slight rotation from the ears and then straight up in space. So you coin the forward and up. Yeah. To allow a lengthening in the back and a widening in the back. You just think it very quickly and very lightly and let it go. And you keep giving this recycling of that thought. The end result is always the same. They think this long enough, there's like, oh, I feel something releasing in my stomach that I didn't realize I was holding. Or, oh, I'm feeling a release in my ribs of something I didn't realize I was holding. Oh, I'm feeling a little bit of movement in my legs for some mysterious reason. Because as that back shifts, the muscles in the legs can relax. We keep thinking that. Now here's the trick. Then I ask him to keep thinking of those directions and not the act of getting out of the chair. Think about the directions of ease in your neck. Let's move while thinking about that. So in other words, thinking about what you want in your body, thinking about the means of achieving your goal, think about the process of getting there. Don't give a darn about doing it right. Think, let it go, think up and out, and let's move and see how it goes. How it always goes is it's a little bit lighter and they move a little bit easier. They move with a little less strain. And then they get a little surprised. They're like, oh my gosh, I want to do that again. That was easier. That was better. That was lighter on my body. That's what gives them the confidence, right? Because all they did was they said no to the stimuli and then yes to a particular set of instructions. Freedom in the neck, a head releasing forward and up, and a back lengthening and widening. And it's just that simple. It moves the ball in the right direction.
I can totally feel that tension in my mind of somebody getting out of a chair, knowing it's going to be a struggle, and anticipating it. And talk about tension, just locking up like, all right, I got to get up here. I got to go feed the dog. All right, there we go. And the mind is telling the body, this is not going to be easy. So guess what? It's not going to be easy, essentially.
Self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the point, is that the mind is always influencing our coordination one way or the other.
Sure.
It's always influencing our use one way or the other. Right. And when we get in the habit, and I think we all get in this habit, I certainly got in this habit of being in constant motion, constantly acting and reacting into stimuli. You never have a chance to break, and you're always running into brutalizing tension. You're being brutalized by tension over time. All right. And so it turns out the only thing that we need to do is we just need to become present and listen to, oh, am I acting or reacting in this moment?
And
not judge it. It's okay if you're acting or reacting, but if you notice it, it gives you the space to not have to do it anymore.
We've heard that term, act and react, but it's so clear when you apply it to this situation, getting out of the chair. Because what are you doing before you're getting out of the chair? You're reacting to the anticipation of what it's going to be like getting out of the chair because you've done it before.
Yeah.
Instead of just get out of the chair.
Right. You're preparing for it mentally, and so therefore you can't help but prepare for it physically. Right? You can't help but prepare for it physically. But then when you just let go of that, and how would getting out of the chair be easy? That's essentially what we're starting to think. How could I make this easier in this moment? what's doing well, what's going well and what's going with too much effort. Like what in my body seems like it's interfering with my best coordination. You can get curious about that. You can take time to get curious about that. And the act of curiosity is sufficient. The act of bringing some attention, some kind attention, is enough to change the energy in your body. And how your thinking goes, your energy flows. And so when you change your energy around that, you change your thinking around that, you change the quality, you change the behavior in your neck and your back. And it starts with that. It starts with oh, darn it, body, instead of darn it, body, why don't you just behave yourself and do what I tell you to do? Well, body, how am I interfering with you here? What needs to let go in order for you to do your job?
Now
And when you start asking those questions, your body will tell you. I promise you that.
with the technique, body doesn't lie. With the technique, do you just naturally start thinking in a different way to the point where it just literally comes natural? Where if I'm getting out of the chair,
Yeah,
and I've already processed them. I'm good. We're getting out.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
You get in the habit of, oh, here's a stimuli, instead of, oh, I'll immediately do it. Wait, free neck, head forward and up. Now I'll do it. Now I'll act with a conviction.
Sure.
Right? There's a pause to stop the habitual, to create room for a retraining psychophysically. Right? And you can do that split second, and off you go. You've done the deed. You've thought the thought. You thought the good thought. The body will move a little micro bit in the right direction. You act on it. You create a new neuromuscular pathway. Right? Stimuli comes. No. You think the good thought. You think of what you want in your body. You act upon that. It moves it slightly in the right direction, reinforces a more positive neuromuscular pathway.
Wow.
Right? And the more you think that, the more it's instantaneous. It's instantaneous. This is the reason why, one Alexander technique teacher was riding her bike to go teach at 96 years old with a perfect, beautiful, upright posture in space.
Hmm.
Why? Why? Because before she got on that bike, she went, no, free neck, head forward, neck, back length, and one. No, let's go. And she created the habit of self-care within a split second, followed by another moment of self-care within a split second. And that's the great thing. You could use your work, you could use your play, you could use anything you want because the stimuli is there, wanting to form a habit within you. And we can allow that stimuli to create a habit of powerful coordination, Steve. Before I finish this conversation, no, free neck, head forward and up, back length and widening. Let's have some fun having a conversation.
It has to be so physically liberating to break those chains of that, feeling of, stiffening up and anticipating. And even from the senior side,
Yeah.
the lack of confidence because you're older and, you don't move like you used to. And that can even lead to injury because now you're always braced, that woman getting on the bike, she's obviously confident. If it's somebody else, it's like, I'll try this, but I really don't know how this is going to go. You're probably going to have an accident. I hate to say it.
Right. Well, the thing is that, we get bogged down in this idea that changing psychophysical habits is just, it's a grind. We get in that idea and we don't have a lot of confidence that we can do it,
Right.
But the truth is that when you think your way through it, instead of trying to feel your way through it, it's so easy to change psychophysical habits. Tensions, Steve, they're not hard to let go of when we're thinking that way. They're very effortless. They're very easy. And, I joke with my students, when you're practicing movement, when you're practicing the Alexander technique, if it's not the most amazingly fun experience of your life, then you're probably end gaining. You're doing something wrong. You're not in the mode of the thinking, because the thinking is, as you said, it's so liberating, right? It gives you some power that you didn't think you had, right? It gives you some power over that feeling of discomfort that you're experiencing in this moment by, let me bring some attention, let me not get pulled into it, and let's work holistically with this.
Even that senior that practices the Alexander technique, they probably feel younger. They're moving. First time in a
They're
long
moving.
time. Yeah.
The functioning as well, it's a function as well, with the breath that is good. The circulatory system keeps healthy, everything keeps healthy.
Now we're focusing on seniors today, but the Alexander technique is for essentially everybody. To free up that tension. How do we connect with you? You teach this, you offer the therapy, you instruct, it's changed your life. What's the best way to connect with you, Travis?
Yes, why don't you reach me at bodymindbalanceco@gmail.com. Look forward to working with you there. Have a great time.
Life changing. And
Yeah.
again, I'm going to repeat it because it needs to get repeated. 150 years this has been around. We're still talking about it for a reason, because it works. It works and works well. Thank you for today and all the insight. Super important, especially with seniors. And I appreciate you, and happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, Steve. Have a
Thanks.
great day.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.